for tuning in. I'm here today to talk about my spoiler review for Howl's Moving Castle, the book. Next week I will be getting into the movie, and I will not make the same mistake twice. I will not watch it high. But I'm here to talk about the book today. And as I talked about kind of in my spoiler-free review, I didn't really know there was a book, so I've seen the movie multiple times before reading the book. I've heard from several sources that the book is different from the movie, but still very, very good, and the things that are similar are the things that I really enjoyed in the movie, which made me really excited to read this. As you guys all know, being the spoiler review, you still follow Sophie here, and just the kind of the ragtag group that she interacts with regularly and that assembles around her, and you just enjoy this really wholesome kind of semi-grand adventure, and it was a lot of fun. I'm just going to jump right into the likes because I want you guys to know about the book. I really loved the pacing here. It was super consistent with the exception of the very end, but that end was so short and so rushed that I almost don't consider it part of the pacing of the rest of the story. The story itself wasn't fast-paced, but it was just really consistent, and the story moved on in such a smooth and flowing way because of the pacing that I really think this was one of the strongest features of the book. My second like is how gentle and wholesome a lot of the world was. You have Sophie as like a pretty grounding character. While there were a few things going on where you're like, ooh, that's a little risque, the more you got to know the characters, the more gentle and sweet the story became, which I really loved. Because you're in this fantastical world, but you really just had this more slice of life feel with everything that was going on, which was incredibly enjoyable, and I can't tell you how stress relieving it was to read a story like that. And my third like is the settings themselves. Like with all the cities like Port Haven and Kingsbury and the Wild or the Wastes, and eventually you get moved into the Hatter's store. It's just the way these places are described, they just came to life, and they were different enough that they added a lot of variety to the interactions that your main group of characters had, and it really helped give context to some of the other characters that aren't as described as in depth, where it's more about your observation as the reader to get to know them, which was a lot of fun. But unfortunately, there were a few things I did not care for. I do have 3 dislikes listed here as well. The first is the romance between Sophie and Howl. And I know that because Sophie's an oblivious character, like an oblivious protagonist, she doesn't see it. And maybe I'm just as oblivious as Sophie. I mean, I think they would have been really awesome friends, and I think the kind of found family vibe would have worked really well for them. But I just really didn't get behind the romance and couldn't get behind the romance. And by the time they kind of are like, oh, we're gonna be a couple, I was like, I'm so lost just in terms of that relationship. I feel so bad because so many people talk about how cute and loving that story is. I just didn't see it. Not the romance part. Family love, yes. Romantic, eh. My second negative is the wishy-washy edges of the magic system kind of frustrated me. There was a lot of difference between the magic that Sophie could do, the magic that Michael could do, and the magic that the Witch of the Waste and Howl could do, and it was never really explained in a way that allowed me to kind of see where the general boundaries of magic were. And while I have enjoyed some soft magic systems, I typically have a lot harder time with them just because they don't have defined boundaries. And it just ended up being really frustrating because there were things going on that I wasn't sure if it was actually magic or just the world being weird. It was just a few things and just enough to pull my immersion a little bit. It wasn't anything major. I think a lot of other people are not even going to notice. And my third negative is how confused I was by the ending. This ties 100% directly into the romance. I mean, about half of it is there was all this build up to the end, and then you get to what I would have thought would have been the final confrontation, and it wasn't. It just things just happen. Even now I'm confused. Like, Sophie and Howl ended up together, and the witch is defeated, and people are one individual people again instead of this weird monster conglomerate. A lot of things happened at once, and I read the ending twice to try to absorb it better, because I was definitely high the first time I read it. The second time didn't help. And this is 100%, I think, just a me thing. I know a lot of people who have read this book and nobody's ever mentioned this, so it's me. Please take this dislike lightly. And then with that out of the way, we're going to talk about the characters real quick here. I have to be quite frank, I loved the characters, I loved the found family vibes, I loved how gentle and wholesome they were, I loved how fantastical some of the other ones were. The cast was just such an amazing mix of those two qualities, and you had such variety of personality on top of it. It was so fun to follow this cast and get to know the people and get to know your main cast through these secondary characters. And it was so much fun, and I absolutely loved it. I know I talked about it in my likes a little bit here, but like, just the characters really are an amazing part of this story. And the villain too was really exciting. I really enjoyed our interactions with her, because it really kind of allowed you to see what your main characters were like, especially Howl. It was very good for context for him. And with that, I will just do a quick wrap up and then leave you guys here. 3.5 out of 5 stars for this book. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than many other books I've read. It's just not a complete banger for me. I'm not going to be coming back to this again and again and again. In fact, I probably will not reread this story until I have kids who will enjoy the story as well. I loved following Sophie and her friends in this world. It was vibrant, it was gentle, it was wholesome, it was a grand adventure, but with a really slice-of-life feel. And it was just overall incredibly charming. I think there's a lot of people who are going to get a lot of love out of this book. In fact, I know there are a lot of people. I watched reviews from some of them before I picked this book up to see if it was going to be worth my time. And I think a lot of people are going to like it if you've liked any of the things I've said here, despite the spoilers, or if just read it. And with that, I will leave you here. I am going to see you in the next video, which is the movie, where I'll give you kind of how it compared to the book, and we'll see if I want to talk about what it was like watching it high. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.